Hello, and welcome to Togglebox. For today's show, we will see how the Dela Cruz family reacts and understands the nature of SARS-CoV-2, or also known as the coronavirus disease 2019. And furthermore, we will tackle the newest testing kit in the market that is deemed to be a candidate as an alternative to the usual nasopharyngeal swab testing kits, the saliva testing kits. In the streets of Mabolo comes the Dela Cruz household. The Dela Cruz cousins are currently chilling in their living room and watching the live telecast of LUX News. In the ZC broadcast, a professional virologist, Dr. Grace Buhay, is invited by the host, Mr. Daniel Dacante, to give the viewers a broader and deeper knowledge on the topic. In the Dela Cruz household, 4 cousins are watching the news broadcast. The eldest, Jonil, and her brother Miguel, and their cousins, Franz and Angelo.
Let us welcome Dr. Buhay from the Virology Institute of the Philippines to introduce the new promising alternative of the nasopharyngeal swab test, which are the saliva tests. She will be explaining more on the benefits and disadvantages and will elaborate on the differences between the nasal test and the saliva test. Please welcome Dr. Buhay. So Dr. Buhay, thank you so much for allocating some time for this show.
The doctor's job really fits your name, right? Because Dr. Buhay, doctor saves lives.
No problem, Mr. Daniel. I'm really looking forward to sharing and providing some knowledge to you and the viewers today.
Yes, actually there will be a part in this broadcast where the viewers can call our hotline as previewed on the screen and ask questions, Dr. Buhay. Anyways, to start it off, I would like to ask, why are nasopharyngeal tests very effective and at the top of our market right now?
As enlightenment, the World Health Organization has actually stated that the virus spread through saliva droplet. With that, it is very effective to also target those saliva specimens as diagnosis for the virus, which is why it is mostly through respiratory specimens, through nucleic-based methods, to analyze if the person is positive or negative of the case of the virus. So these methods are like nasal swab, oral swab, and saliva analysis.
That's why the authorities really tell us to wear face masks, so that we could not potentially spread the virus to others.
Yeah, that's true. That's why we need to, wash our hands so that the saliva particles will, be gone.
Oh, so Doc, if both nasal swabs and saliva testing kits are nucleic based, what are the major differences between them?
Firstly, the process to acquire the specimens are greatly different. Nasal swab is very invasive. A long stick with a soft brush on the tip is inserted on the person's nose, and this is very uncomfortable. On the other hand, the saliva tests are done through spitting through a test tube, which is actually so easy to do. Even young children can do it easily.
Yeah, actually, my partner is a frontliner, and we both had to take the nasal swab testing just to make sure that we both didn't have the virus. As for my experience, it was really uncomfortable, and at some point it was painful. After that, I even sneezed as a reflex, which is unsafe, because I could have potentially spread the virus to the people around me. But don't worry, okay? I'm not positive. I'm negative, okay?
Moreover, the nasal swab tests are only for symptomatic people, while the salivary tests can be done by both asymptomatic and symptomatic people.
So, you were asymptomatic during that time you had to take the test at the jam?
Yeah, I actually had symptoms, and I was having mild colds and cough. But after the test, the result came as negative, and it was actually just the seasonal flu, not the COVID-19 virus.
So Dr. Buhay, can you give me reasons why you say that saliva test kits are better than the nasal swab kits? How does it benefit both the patients and the healthcare workers?
So a saliva test kits is actually a lot better than the nasal swab kits because it gives out a lot of benefits to both the patients and the healthcare workers. So as you can see, a saliva test kit would only cost around 500 pesos, unlike the nasal swab kits that would cost around 4,000 to 9,000 pesos. Second, it is comfortable So patients would usually complain of their discomfort during their nasal swab test, and they may cough due to the gagging and could cause health hazard to the healthcare workers. So third, it is not time consuming. This test can be done at home, and they can just send it to the health facilities near their area. So this would also help our healthcare workers by keeping themselves safe from being infected and being able to manage the number of tests being taken and received. So lastly, it is more sensitive in detecting the virus. So 81% of saliva tests returned positive during the first 5 post-days evaluation, along with 71% of nasal tests during the 10 days post-evaluation. So a similar difference appeared.
Whoa! The price difference is huge. And I would really feel uncomfortable if someone was sticking something to my nose.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, look at what the difference in the accuracy percentage. I mean, I would rather go to a budget-friendly test that is very comfortable than pay so much, then it would result to something very uncomfortable like sticking something through your nose.
Dr. Buhai, you say these obvious advantages, but why is it not the frontline testing kits for our clinics, for our hospitals right now?
Sir, actually, many say that it's because the guidance are strict and very stringent. Even at home, testers have to video call the handlers of diagnosis to ensure that the tests are doing it right. Also, limited research studies on a comparison with the other kits are published and accessible currently. With that, citizens are still not quite convinced with the accuracy of the saliva test kits. So, a study showed that sensitivity in saliva samples varied from 69.2% to 71.1% when compared to the nasal samples. So a study conducted by Yale investigators concluded that at 1 to 5 days after diagnosis, they reported a saliva sensitivity of 81% and a nasal swab sensitivity of 71%, suggests that at least a similar sensitivity during hospitalization.
So, it's really as effective as nasal swab tests. So, instead of using the uncomfortable one, then we should just use this.
Definitely, but I think there's a reason why not everyone is able to utilize the saliva test kits.
But actually, the main reason to why saliva testing kits are not used by countries is because of the availability of clinical laboratories. So, if our country would really invest and give a budget to establish facilities that could analyze the saliva specimens, then it would really be helpful to our end.
Well, I think that was the reason we were finding Miguel.
Doc, why is it important for citizens to take COVID diagnostic tests?
I think it's obvious when I say that the pandemic has affected our daily lives. So with the testing kits, we are able to take a grip and control the impact of the virus. Since if you experience symptoms but you don't take the test, then you won't know if you have the virus itself. You could potentially spread the virus. Moreover, there are actually asymptomatic cases, and you'll never know you have the virus if you don't take the test at all.
Absolutely, Dr. Buhai. If the citizens of the country will not take some diagnostic tests, then there will be a never-ending cycle between those infected and those transmitting the disease. If we are unable to control this biological disaster, then the country's major factors will most likely be affected. The economy, the social relationships, these will decline, and many more.
Oh, the pandemic is actually a disaster.
Yes, it's actually a biological disaster because the virus could cause serious damages to the people or population.
So, talking about its implementation in our country, do you think it's necessary? Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's attainable?
So I'm obviously not an expert in political matters, but I have heard that the president has realized the necessity of testing and is currently seeking a cheaper alternative for the nasal swab test. So the government has recently approved a 4.5 trillion pesos pandemic budget for 2021. So calculating it, it will cost approximately around 54 billion pesos to test the entire population using the saliva test kits. Since clinical laboratories only need minimal devices, then it will for sure cost less than the budget for nasal swab test analysis. Frankly, our country was unable to prepare for the pandemic surge, and it was evident during the first few months of quarantine. At the moment, I can say we can all just help mitigate and respond immediately through the distribution of the testing kits and assisting all those who are positive of the virus.
Thank you, Dr. Buhay. That was a very informative and productive talk we had.
Sure, of course, no worries.
And for this part of the show, if you have any questions or inquiries regarding the topic, feel free to dial the number on the screen. Our hotline is open right now. Feel free to dial 876-6943. So that's it for this interview. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Buhay, for sharing your wisdom to us. It was definitely something we will keep in our minds.
It was an amazing show, right guys?
Yeah, it sure is. And I really feel positive, yes, pun intended, that we could overcome this virus soon.
Yeah, I want to share this to others so that they can know about the good news.
That's a great idea.
Life isn't quite what I thought I'd be. When I was a kid on VOIP, I thought when I get older I'd marry her, I told her. Now I'm 26 and I work in an office. 9 till 5's not the best, I'll be honest. If I could change a single thing, I'd make it me and not him.